Hey everyone. So, because I have a bit of downtime and I never actually got to do a proper breakdown of my PAX Australian panel with Mick Gordon, I thought, you know what? Now is a good time as ever. So, I thought I would go over how the panel happened, meeting Mick Gordon, the panel itself, the aftermath of it, and Melbourne City. So, the best place to start off is how the panel came to be. So, interestingly enough, it dates back to my first interview with Mick. Still my most viewed video to date, right? It's got about 70,000 views on YouTube. Now, I'm not an idiot. I know exactly why that happened. And it's primarily because of the controversy surrounding Mick Gordon at the release of Doom Eternal, right? And his whole beef with Marty Douche Stratton. So I understand why that blew up the way it did. Now, because it was so successful, and I kept getting messages as well saying, when are you going to do a second interview with Mick Gordon? I thought, you know what? I'll reach out to him around about the release of Atomic Heart. So Atomic Heart comes out, and I have no idea who worked on what. I don't know which Russian dudes worked on the music, which parts Jeffrey Day did, which parts Mick Gordon did. So I waited a bit. I spoke to Jeffrey Day. Some of you may have seen that interview. We talked at length about a lot of things. Mick was included, of course. And I thought, you know what? Screw it. After the Jeffrey Day interview, I was like, I'm going to reach out to Mick again. So I reached out to Mick. I sent him an email saying, hey, Mick, I'm not sure if you remember me. My name's Reese. We did an interview a number of years ago. It'd be cool to do a follow-up interview to talk about the stuff that you're working on now, Atomic Heart, etc. And I put in a disclaimer saying, for obvious reasons, we will not talk about Doom Eternal. I wanted to make it perfectly clear that I did not have an agenda with this, that I was trying to get views or doing it for clickbait or whatever. I wanted it to be a genuine conversation. About 2 days later, he emailed back saying, hey, Reese, lovely to hear from you. Enjoyed our conversation last time. Unfortunately, I'm really, really busy. I can't do it at the moment, but I'll keep you in mind for future interviews. So I was like, all right, that's fine. I actually appreciate that, right? As opposed to getting no reply. If I get a rejection email, I'm fine with it. I don't have thin skin the way some people would and be like, oh no, they said no. I don't actually care that much. It's actually good to get confirmation like that as opposed to sending an email and getting no reply, because then you're wondering, well, did you get the email? Did it go to your spam folder? Did some PR person filter it out? So in this case, I was happy. I was like, cool, I can move on. So I thought nothing of it. Then a week later, I released my interview with Dennis Dyack. So for those who don't know who Dennis Dyack is, he did Legacy of Kain, he did Eternal's Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, he did Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. He's currently working on Dead House Sonata. So he was a big deal at one point, and I didn't realize how controversial he was during the whole Gamergate fiasco, which was a major thing in the US. I don't think people in New Zealand gave a shit. I don't think people in Australia gave a shit. It was very much a political movement, and obviously he commented on some things that pissed off a lot of people, and I didn't realize that. So we did the interview. I thought it went well. He thought it went well. Then a day later, I get all these death threats. And I'm like, what? Why am I getting death threats? Because clearly people were pissed off because of this whole Gamergate thing that he said ages ago. I don't know why people hold on to beefs like that for so long. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I was getting all these death threats, a lot of them vile. And then I got one death threat. And this is where things start to get interesting. And I don't remember it word for word, but it was something along the lines of, you're a piece of shit. Dennis is a piece of shit. I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to chop off your head and feed you to alligators. And I was thinking, alligators? Okay, well, this person clearly doesn't live anywhere close to me, right? Because there are only two places in the world that have alligators. It's China and North America, right? Now, people don't watch my show in China because there's no way they can even access it, right? So I know no Chinese person is thinking, oh, screw Kiwi, I'm going to come to his house and kill him because he is Batman. So no one in China gives a shit. So I knew it was someone from North America because I'm like, okay, what's the bet this dude's from Florida? And I know I'm generalizing here, but people need to understand, if you're an American and you've never been outside of America, there is a reason why you guys get so much internationally. And it's because all the media we see is of morons, right? We see all the sensational stuff. We see all the extremists in America. We don't actually see the normal people. So it wasn't until I went to America for the first time, I'm like, oh, okay, Americans are normal. We're just seeing a small minority of idiots, right? So I actually think about 90% of Americans are normal. And I think it's the last 10%, like this douche who wanted to chop my head off and feed me to alligators. People like him are ruining it for the rest of you. And that's why you guys get a bad overview in other countries, because we're just like, what? What is this? So anyway, I digress. So I was a little sour on the interview because I was like, that sucks, because I just wanted to do a good thing. I wanted to interview someone and just learn from them and just give something back to people. So I was a little sour on it. Then literally a day later after receiving death threats, I get an email from Mick saying, hey Reese, I've been asked to do something at PAX Australia and they need a host. And I thought of you. Would you like to do it? And this caught me completely off guard, right? Because a day ago, I got death threats, being threatened to be fed to alligators. And now I'm being asked to do a panel with one of the greatest game composers of the modern age. I actually read the email about 5 times because I wasn't sure. I was like, wait, am I reading this right? And I didn't reply straight away. I left it about 4 hours, 5 hours before I replied. And I was like, hey, Mick, yeah, thanks for thinking of me. I'm really keen to do it. Mick then teamed me up with the organizer of PAX Australia, which is this chick called Kitty, who is an awesome person, very, very bubbly and animated. Have you ever met someone who's so high energy, you're thinking, yeah, you should never drink a Red Bull, sis. Just don't do it. She's one of those. She's just always on the go. Got a lot of energy. Amazing person. Very thorough. PAX is in good hands. PAX Australia, I should say, is in good hands with her at the helm. So I dealt with her a bit, and then that was the end of it for a couple of months. And I think Mick and I reconvened, I think it might have been August or September. It was like 2 months out, I think, from PAX Australia. And that's when we began to lay the groundwork of what we were going to do there. So usually with my interviews, I do what's known as a loose structure. So I kind of have a list of questions, but I don't necessarily follow them. They're more there as a guide because I want the interview to be a bit more free flow and a bit more natural, right? If you've got a list of questions and you keep it super, super structured, it seems a bit rehearsed and it's not as natural, I find. And the main thing for me is to try and make the guest feel as comfortable as possible. And you can't always do that if you're doing these rigid formats. So that's partly why I do it the way I do it. Now, with something like PAX, I do think that it needs to be a bit more structured just because of the nature of the event. So in this case, we planned it out. I gave Mick a list of questions I wanted to ask. He was like, dude, they're all good questions. Happy for any of them. I'm like, okay. So at the actual panel, everything went according to plan for the most part, except there was one question that I changed on the fly. And that was a question regarding university. So there was a question that I asked that you might remember. I asked him what his favorite soundtracks are. I am curious, what would be your favorite soundtracks? That I made up on the fly. What I was originally supposed to ask was, do you think it's a good idea for creative people to go and study at a university in music or game design or animation, basically anything in the creative arts, when they can just go on YouTube and learn everything for free? Because either way, they're going to have to build a portfolio for an employer anyway. And the reason why I didn't ask it is because Mick is very well spoken. He's very articulate. And I wouldn't be surprised if universities approach him at some point asking him to do guest lectures. He could end up even being a teacher at one of these universities. So I didn't want to potentially ruin a chance of him getting another revenue stream. Because I don't know what his answer would have been. I think I have an idea, but I didn't want to risk it, so I didn't ask it, right? But for the most part, the panel went great. There were no problems. I look back on it, and obviously there's things I would change, but whatever. That's water under the bridge. Now, what actually happened was Mick actually arrived an hour before we were supposed to do the panel. So I arrived in Melbourne a few days early, spent it with some friends, did some business, did some networking while I was there, because I didn't want to just fly in, do the panel, and then fly out. I was like, that's a waste of time. So I stayed for about 5 days as opposed to just coming for 1 or 2 days and did a few other things while I was there. Mick literally came in, did the panel, we went to dinner. Next day, we had a behind-the-scenes composer gathering for composers. Then he left. That's how brutal his schedule was. He was in and out pretty much. And one thing I will say about Mick when I first met him is he is exactly like how he appears to be in interviews. The man is so humble. He's so happy. He's energetic. And he's got high praise for others. And he is a genius, and yet he's still humble about it. I don't think people really understand. If you're not a musician, you can't possibly understand how hard it is to create a genre, which he did. He created a genre, Argent metal, right? Any musician will tell you it's near impossible to create a genre. You've basically entered the holy grail when you do that. So... And most geniuses usually are crazy. There's something a bit off about them. But Mick is normal. Very normal, very nice guy. And on top of that, and the video doesn't show it, right? The panel video doesn't show it. The dude was jacked, man. I'm talking real jacked. I don't know if he had a picture of Marty Stratton on his ceiling while he was benching or boxing. A picture of Marty, I don't know. But the dude was ripped, shredded, man. I want to make that clear. I took one look at him after meeting him and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to up my game at the gym. So what happened was, anyway, after the panel, we were supposed to stay back for a bit, talk to some people. Then we'd go to the hotel. We'd get ready. We'd catch an Uber up to a restaurant that we were going to, where we were meeting a guy, Ermin, who is an audio engineer, Dimitri, who's a music composer that currently resides in Melbourne, and another guy, Yanis Brown. You may remember him. I've done an interview with him before. He composed the Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku games. I actually spent more time at PAX with Yanis than anyone else. If I lived in Adelaide, he'd probably be my best friend. The dude was amazing. So anyway, after the panel finishes, about 200 people converge on Mick. A few people came up and talked to me. Fine. All these people converged on Mick to get selfies and autographs and fanboy over him or whatever. So I was there for a bit, and then I went back to the hotel. And then at around about 5 to 7, because we were supposed to be at the restaurant at about 7:30, some pizza place. I don't remember the name offhand. But 5 to 7, I messaged Mick, and I'm like, hey man, are you ready? I'm ready now, keen to go. No reply. I'm like, okay, well that's weird. So I try calling him. Doesn't answer. Message him again. No reply. I'm like, well, I'm just going to walk then. So I decided to walk to the restaurant, explore a bit of Melbourne while I'm at it, get some cardio in so I don't end up with one big ab. And so I get to the venue. Ermin arrives. I introduce myself to him. Dimitri's there. I introduce myself to him. Yanis Brown is there with his daughter. So we're all just chatting for a bit. And none of us can get a hold of Mick. We're like, where the hell is he? What the hell's he doing? And then it got to about, I think, 20 past 8, 8:30, and Dimitri got a hold of him and found out he was still at the venue. He'd been talking to people this entire time, talking to them, signing autographs, speaking to them about music stuff, I'm sure. So he spent the whole time talking to all these people. He didn't at any point would be like, oh, I've got reservations, I've got to go. He stayed there to answer every single question and sign every single thing. That's a testament to how much of a great man he is. So anyway, he eventually gets there at about 9. We've already eaten, so he's not eating now. And then we pay, and then we leave, and then we all go to a bar. And then we spent time there just talking about various things until about 1 a.m., which I won't go into. But I do want to relay one story that he told me about this weird fan, because I find this very strange. I find the whole concept of it very strange. So Mick said that, and this is about an hour, I think, after already signing autographs and everything, some guy walks up to him and is like, hey, Mick, how are you? Can you sign your name on my arm? I'm guessing he's Australian. Melbourne, Australia. Anyway, Mick is just about to sign it, and he's like, wait, why do you want me to sign this? Oh, I'm going to get a tattoo of your name on my arm. And he's like, yeah, don't do that. But I really, really want to. He's like, okay, well, at least wait 24 hours before you do this. And he signed the arm. Now, I don't understand this. This makes no sense to me. Why would you get someone's name tattooed on your arm? I just don't get it. Like, I can kind of understand if it's your spouse, but even then there's a high divorce rate, so I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe just get a necklace or something engraved in a cup. Why get someone tattooed on your arm? Someone's name tattooed on your arm. I don't understand it. And when I don't understand something, I try to put myself in that person's shoes. So I'm like, okay, this guy obviously is a Mick Gordon fan. He's going to PAX to meet his idol, right? And he wants to get the name tattooed on his arm because he thinks it's cool. Does he think it will impress Mick? That's the mindset I can think of. But why would you do that? Even when he's relaying the story, he's not sitting there thinking, oh yeah, that's a really cool thing that he did. We were all like, what? Why would you do that? We were all kind of creeped out by it. Mick didn't think it was cool. He thought it was creepy. If someone came up to me and they wanted to tattoo my name on their arm, I'd think they're a weirdo. If they wanted to get the Kiwi Talks logo tattooed on their arm, I'd be like, no, please don't do that. Mick's a lot nicer than I am. I'd be like, why? Why would you do that? And maybe it's partly because I've never understood the appeal of tattoos either. I don't get it. Maybe someone can explain it to me. But there seems to be way more drawbacks anyway than benefits with tattoos, right? They hurt. They cost a lot of money to get done. There's the whole growth factor with it because you're not the same person in your 30s as you were in your 20s. I used to love Pokemon when I was younger. Now I think Pokemon's garbage. I think the whole franchise is trash and Game Freak needs to go the way of the dodo. So the last thing I would do is get a Pikachu tattoo on my knee. And if I had, I would regret it. And the other thing is, I've spoken to business people about this because I've been to various business and networking events. And they'll say stuff like, oh, I don't like to employ people with tattoos, or I try to refrain from employing people with tattoos. And I'll be like, why is that? And they'll be like, well, it's because they're reckless. It shows a reckless side of them. They're not very analytical. They don't think of the consequences of their decisions. And they're attention seeking. And I'm like, look, even if you believe that or not, I'm like, okay, so what? There are possible career hindrances from having tattoos, particularly in visible spots. In fact, the other day I was at an Indian restaurant and some dude had blessed tattooed on his neck. And I'm like, why, man? Like, why would you do that? Just get a blessed necklace or something. So I don't get it. I've never understood the appeal of it. Please never do it. Any of you, don't get people's names tattooed on your arm. Please don't. There's no benefit to doing it. I'd rather you invest that money into something, some course or something, or just make something for a celebrity rather than giving them a vivid pen so they can sign your arm so you can go get a tattoo later. That's weird. But besides from that, the day was awesome. Mick was awesome. And I will say, just to quickly finish off, that Melbourne is one of the best cities I've ever visited. It's just got a great vibe to it. The city's well designed. It feels very safe as you're walking around. I think I saw like 2 homeless people in a city of 5 million. That's crazy. I mean, London has heaps of homeless people. Seattle has heaps of homeless people. LA, Mumbai, Brisbane, Sydney, even Auckland in New Zealand is homeless people. But maybe I just got lucky because I only saw 2 homeless people. But it's got a great vibe. The public transport is amazing. I highly recommend going there if you haven't. I'm not a huge fan of these lists. You know, you see those rankings of the best cities to live in or the most livable cities. I'm always skeptical when it comes to those lists because I'm like, okay, well, what are you basing that on? What's the metric that you're using to measure this? Is it based on crime, cost of living, public transport, how hot the women are? I don't know. Who knows what the metric is based on? But I will say that I think Melbourne is awesome and definitely visit it if you haven't. I think Mumbai is the worst city in the world. Never go there. But Melbourne is amazing. So I really enjoyed my time there. I would love to move there if I could just find a suitable job that paid well and the internet infrastructure wasn't so because internet infrastructure in Australia is terrible. The worst in the Western world, in first world countries. It's truly, truly terrible. But yeah, that was my experience at PAX Australia. It was cool. Please support Mick in any way you can. He is the man. He's awesome. Australians, he is a national treasure. Protect him at all costs. And I thank you so much for everyone that turned up to the panel and everyone who's continued to support it by watching the video. I might be doing something again at PAX Australia this year. It's in early discussions. But yeah, hope you enjoyed my little behind the scenes take. But stay safe. And until next time, peace.